Hello, my name is Tamar Kidane. I am the Spotlight Initiative National Program Coordinator here in Malawi, which is a program to end all kinds of violence against women and girls. So if you want my life journey, I should probably start with my father's journey because that's where it all started. I am an Eritrean by origin. It's a small country above Ethiopia, Northeast Africa. But I was born in Sweden because my father was a refugee, an Eritrean refugee in Sweden. He left his country, Eritrea, because of the war. And he saved up all his money to go to America, but then one night his money was all stolen and he didn't have enough money to get to America, so he got to Sweden instead. So that's how I ended up being born in Sweden, where, as I said, my father was a refugee, and he started working for the UN. He was the only child in his family who managed to get to university, and he comes from a very humble village in Eritrea, very small. He was walking 11 kilometers to school every day, so from very humble beginnings. And he got to Sweden because he saved up money, and of course he was studying. And I think it's why, for me, the most important thing anyone can have in their life is education. When I look at my cousins, my father's siblings, children, and where they are today, we're in very different places. A lot of my family are still in Eritrea, still living very modest lives. And I'm very lucky, to have had a father who believed in girls' education, who believed that education will open doors for you wherever you want to go, whether it's within your own country, whether it's in a different country. He believed in the power of education, and that's probably the most important lesson he passed on to me, because it opened doors for him. So I was born in Sweden, but moved around my whole life because my father's job took him to new countries every 2 to 3 years. I consider myself an African, but an African of the world because I've lived in a lot of different countries, not only because of my father, because even when I was older, after I finished university, I studied law at university in my first degree, and even after that, I continued to move around because my eyes were opened and I was so curious about the world, and I wanted to see different countries, and I wanted to continue to explore the world. So again, for that, I've continued to do that only because of my education. So I studied law, first of all, and then after I finished law, my law degree, I went back to Eritrea because I wanted to contribute to my country. So I went back, I worked for the Ministry of Justice. I wanted to focus on human rights because I noticed very early on in my life that there's so much inequality in this world. Some people have all the money in the world, all the opportunities in the world, and others less so. And I think equality for me became a really important point very young in my life. And I guess the main equality that became important to me was women's equality, women and girls' equality, because I started noticing that men seem to have many more opportunities, men and boys, than girls, especially in my mother continent of Africa. Parents send their boys to school but not their girls. Parents marry off their girls but not their boys. So this really stood out to me, and I wanted to make a difference. So when I went to Eritrea, I was focused on human rights, and my plan was to go back to the UK where I did my first degree. But when I was in Eritrea, again, the inequality just kept standing out to me, and I just kept noticing it, and I decided not to become a lawyer. And it really killed my father. He said, "But you have a law degree, why wouldn't you want to become a lawyer? You can make good money." And for me, the important thing was not money. The important thing was to contribute to the betterment of this world, to make the world a better place, because we need the world to become a better place. So I stopped law and I started Actually, I was confused in the beginning. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took some time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think that's another important life lesson for me is whatever you choose to do in life, make sure you love it. Make sure it makes you happy so that your work is not work. Your work is a hobby. It's something you enjoy. It's something you love. And if you love what you do, you will be good at it. You will excel. And if you excel, more opportunities open for you. So I actually at first I wanted to work in children's rights, but somehow it didn't work out. I ended up working in women and girls' rights, and it was an accident because I was, as I said, I was really trying to focus on children's rights, but then somebody offered me a job in women and girls' rights. So my second degree was in international humanitarian action. So again, I left law behind and started focusing on humanitarian work, helping people in need. And once I finished that, I didn't really have any opportunity. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what to do. I got a scholarship to go and study in South America. And so I did that, and then I just started knocking on doors and asking for a job. And another life lesson, you know, you have to persevere, you have to be proactive. If you want something, you have to go get it. Nobody's going to just give it to you. So you have to know what you want, and you have to be willing to work for it. So I worked for a year and a half, almost for free. And I was very poor. I think I lived on bread and butter basically for like a year. And then after the year of working for free, of course my family helped me, and I was really grateful and fortunate to have that possibility. Then I started earning a little bit more, and then I think during that year and a half I worked so hard. And I proved myself, and then I got offered a better job, and the climb continued. I continued to climb and climb and climb, and now I can say I'm in a good place, and I want to continue to do this work. I want to continue to see girls fulfill their potential. I want to encourage girls to study, to go to school, to learn, to think about themselves, because I think as women and as girls, we're often taught to think about the family, to think about your parents, to think about your relatives, to think about the community. But in order to help them, you have to first help yourself. So I think girls should think about what they want. What do they want in life? What do they want to achieve? And from there, think about how they can support their family, how they can support their parents, how they can support their communities. And you know, on the other hand, that is the beauty of women and girls. And in the development world, we say, if you want to support or empower a community, if you give money to men, sorry to say, most of the time it'll be spent on alcohol, or it'll be spent on clothes for the man, it'll be spent on, you know, things that don't really help the community grow. But if you give money to a woman, she'll think about her family, she'll think about her community, she'll think about the people who have disabilities, she'll think about how her neighbors' children can access education. So I really believe in the power of women and girls, because we have this ability to think about everybody, but sometimes it's too much. Sometimes I think we should start with ourselves first. Think about how we support ourselves, what we want to achieve in life, and then think about our communities. And think big. You know, don't just think about what look at role models that are out there. Don't only focus on the role models in your community, because if you only think about the role models in your community, probably you'll end up being a teacher, maybe a nurse, which is wonderful. Those are incredibly good professions to have. But the reason I say look beyond your community is because you might find your life's passion outside of your community. You might look at somebody who's a journalist. There may not be any journalists in your community, but you might be watching TV someday and say, yes, I would love to read the news. Or you might see, I don't know, somebody working for the UN, and maybe there's nobody in your community working in the UN, but maybe that's your destiny, maybe that's your ambition. So think big, dream big, you know. As they say, reach for the stars. Even if you miss, What is it? No, sorry, let me redo that. Reach for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. So you have to really, dream big. Don't be afraid to dream big, and don't let people limit you. Don't let people say, oh no, that's too ambitious. Oh no, you can't do that, or you can't do this. Only you know what you can and cannot do. And more importantly, what you want to do. Because if you want something, nothing in this world can stop you from getting it.